Welcome to another Versus video. This time we are featuring Set 9 Core Constructed. We'll be pitting blue-green cows against the top deck of the format, Blurple. This will be game one of a three-game series with these two decks, so like and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos as they come out. Let's take a look at the deck list we're playing today. This is a version of the blue-green control that you may have seen going around, and there are a lot of kind of core cards to this deck, but I'll discuss some of the card choices that we've made in this list that we'll be playing today and kind of how they may impact the matchups. First things first, I think most lists at this point are on all 12 Clarabelle, from the 1-drop Clarabelle, 3-drop Clarabelle, and of course 7-drop Clarabelle, which is integral to our game plan. Of course, our ramp in Tipo and Sail the Azurite Sea. And then for the secondary ramp, there is a little bit of debate in this regard. Today we are playing Donald Duck, but you could play Pleakley, or there are versions that even run nothing in that slot. Donald Duck Perfect Gentleman is a really critical card that we have found in this set 9 to be a key piece to making this deck work well. It just gives you a lot more action in the games where you don't find your Clarabelle right away. Often seeing that extra card once a turn where you get the card first, we can take advantage of it much better than they can. Otherwise, some ubiquitous choices in this deck: John Silver, Basil. You'll see that in all these decks. We are on no copies of Bobby in this list. We're opting for 4 copies of Develop Your Brain instead. And of course, 4 Visions. Some lists do not play 1 Ben, but we are playing the 1 copy of Ben in this list to try to maximize the times when we are able to get to a high hand and are able to return all their permanents so that we can just close the game out with against Blurple and some of the other decks that we may have a longer game against. Otherwise, no Hades in this list. We are running 4 copies of Mother Knows Best to try to maximize on our Clarabelle shift game plan and just make the most out of that initial burst of card draw. We are looking not to give them too much ink so they can have a hard time competing on tempo with this version of this deck list. This is a similar list to what I played in the top 8 of the 5K at Charlie's Collectibles, and I've been doing well with this list. One of the cards in here that's a little bit spicy is this one of Prince Philip. I have been trying a lot of different things in this slot, from Radigan to a second copy of Bend, or even Bobby and some things in that slot. Trying out the Prince Philip today. I don't know if he'll come up a ton, but this is a card that can be good against some of the grindy matchups like Blurple or the blue-green mirrors. With that in mind, let's go take a look at the mulligans. So we won the die roll in this case. So on the play against Blurple, we are looking for a few specific things to just enable our game plan of hitting our 7-drop Clarabelle as early as possible, hopefully with a song such as Mother Knows Best or You're Welcome. But overall, we are looking for the shift line and ramp in our early opening hand. Of note against Blurple on the play, we do not have much fear of being disrupted off of our Clarabelle shift line. As long as we can find either a 1-cost Clarabelle or a 3-cost Clarabelle, our turn 4 should be able to shift Clarabelle into a song if we have it available to us. So really their only way to disrupt us is to play a turn 4 Elsa and snipe one of our Clarabelles, either with a Basil or with a combination of characters to challenge. That being said, on the play, if we do hit ramp and we are able to shift turn 4, we're able to do that before they can come in with an Elsa line, so they don't have that option. So as far as what cards we are looking for here against Blurple, I am just looking for my 7-cost Clarabelle at all costs. I am looking for a 2-cost ramp, and I am looking for one of my shift Clarabelles, either a 1-cost or the 3-cost, just to enable these draws. Ideally, I would have a 1-cost Clarabelle along with the turn 3 Perfect Gentleman and shift on turn 4. But In lieu of that, we really are just looking for hitting our Clarabelle shift target and our shift line. So, with this in mind, these cards I'm looking at holding on to Develop My Brain, Sail the Azurite Sea, and Clarabelle. Um, the rest of these we want to send back just to try to get our best shot at seeing our 7 cost Clarabelle. The reason I want to keep Develop in this case is just to get another look at either finding our song or finding our 7 cost Clarabelle. Really, our primary game plan is just every game see as many cards as we can early in order to hit our Clarabelle shift line. So Develop gives us our best chance, along with Sail and the Clarabelle, to actually see it with enough time to actually get enough value off of it. So here we'll keep just Sail the Azurite Sea, Develop Your Brain, and Clarabelle, sending Donald Duck, John Silver, Heads Held High, and Mother Knows Best, trying to find our 7 cost Clarabelle. So here we were lucky enough to actually find our 1 cost Clarabelle and 2 copies of 7 cost Clarabelle, and actually another inkable in the John Silver. This is really an ideal hand. Only thing we really would like to see before our shift turn is either a Mother Knows Best or You're Welcome, so that we can maximize that shift turn. But you can't ask for too much more here. We have enough cards to kind of, sculpt our hand to find exactly what we need to do for our turn 4 shift. Here, I'm looking to turn 1 Clarabelle into turn 2 Sail plus Develop to see a few more cards to hopefully hit our lines. Probably inking John Silver to start, and then trying to hold on to the second copy of 7 cost Clarabelle just so that we do have a backup for when they ultimately potentially Hades us. But really a good start, and we'll just to see how the game plan shapes up. Really, with these early turns against Blurple, you're just looking to sculpt the perfect hand to get your shift line off before they can really recover. And because on the play we are effectively a turn ahead, they have very few options. All right, and jumping into the gameplay here, we have Resolve Mulligans, and we are looking to start with inking John Silver into that 1 cost Clarabelle, like I mentioned. Apologies for kind of the camera angle on this one, guys. We in the setup, I am not using an ideal tripod, so it is a little bit wonky sometimes with the way these tables are set up, but I think for these, we can see all the gameplay at least. So the role player opens on a Basil, which is pretty typical here. That does threaten with the Elsa to quest and then challenge in that turn. Here I was able to develop. Looks like I picked up another develop off of the card draw. And off of the Sail, we are looking to develop again. Just keep trying to keep inkables in our hands so that we don't miss any of our ink on these early turns, and looking for that Clarabelle shift line. Next turn, we'll be looking to play out either ink plus 3 cost Clarabelle or Sail into 3 cost Clarabelle if we did happen to find that. If we do have a 1 cost here, such as another Clarabelle, we'll do that as well. And the Blurple player hit their ramp on 2 in the form of Tipo. Tipo is the card we least want to see out of them, just because it does represents one less card of their hand when we go for our shift line. But he, of course, quests here offering the trade, but we do not want to trade with this early cost Clarabelle. And here we were able to find the Perfect Gentleman, which is ideal here, just because it represents a second singer if we do happen to see multiple songs. And that extra card, right? Just getting that card economy going early is a really good thing. So turn 3 Dumbo from the Lurple player, and questing with the Tipo is kind of a bait. And here we have Donald Duck Perfect Gentleman, drawing both of us a card, and we are going to shift our Clarabelle. And here, if we have 2 songs, we will probably try to play both. But if we have at least a You're Welcome or a Mother Knows Best, we will send this Dumbo back. Notably, the Blurple player will be on their 5 ink turn next turn. So we are not really in any danger just yet. and looks like we were able to find the You're Welcome off of some of those draws. So this is really where the blue-green deck shines, is when we're able to hit this line, and especially on the play against Blurple, we have kind of no fear of our one-drop Clarabelle being taken out by an Elsa because they just don't have enough time to get there. So we draw a ton of cards here, and over the next couple of turns, really the plan is we're expecting a Hades to come down at some point here. Good chance the Blurple player has seen some ramp off of the cards we just drew them off of Your Welcome. So they will likely just start dumping their hand so that Clarabelle does not get much value, which is so if they are able to effectively lower their hand to a point where we can't put our hand down enough to get enough value, there is game in just not trying to ink our entire hand and getting really low on hand size, and instead just going for a line where we keep our hand healthy and just play value characters over and over. And here the purple player was able to find the End of the Unknown to take care of Clarabelle, along with a couple more one drops just to reduce that hand size. This is a situation where I think I may have misplayed. If realistically, I probably didn't need to kill that Tipo. Could have just sang You're Welcome with the Donald here instead of the Clarabelle and protected myself against the End of the Unknown line. So something to think about as you're going through these turns is, do I need to actually exert my Clarabelle, especially into Blurple? Just, giving them End of the Unknown here is not something I necessarily always want to do. Still in good shape, though. Looks like we are up a lot of ink with this Donald. Now, one thing we are looking for out of the Blurple player key cards that they may have coming down are Monstro and potentially a Hades into, a second Clarabelle if we are able to establish that. Here, just because of the End of the Unknown inking both of those cards, the Clarabelle and the Shift, we are up so much ink we're able to just hard cast Under the Sea and start to actually get some lore here. So we're way ahead on value, but there are a lot of cards in their deck that could put us on the back foot. Hades being one of them, or just a big character to challenge here. Because he did not find the ramp to really just accelerate his ink that last turn, he is a little bit behind here and isn't able to hit a Hades or a Monstro this turn. So the Donald draws coming in again, just showing how powerful it can be in this particular matchup, where we can just continue to have cards coming. And I was able to be pretty lucky this game and just finding the bend off of some of those initial draws. But it is something that will happen quite a bit, something you can fish for with something like Visions very early on, especially when we're drawing 4 or 5 cards off of this early Clarabelles, combined with Perfect Gentleman. There's a good chance we're going to find bend of our will, early in the turns against some of these decks. And we do play this game out, but realistically, at the point where I've drawn so many cards and bent with a empty board, the game is effectively over from a research perspective. It would take a lot for the purple player to be able to come back. The bend really takes them off of the Monstro comeback as well, where they don't have all the cards they need to play the game effectively. And here, just looking to go wider, get as many things on the board as possible. Blurple does not have any kind of board wipe outside of a Monstro line where they are using their hand to effectively punch through some of these characters. With that in mind, you can just kind of no fear, put a very wide board out there, just as long as you are conscious of Monstro. So we'll just be looking to try to close the game out as quickly as possible before the purple player really can hit some of their big threats. Iago here, not really an issue, just going to continue pressuring the board and going high as low as possible. And this Donald Perfect Gentleman has been active since turn 3, so the amount of extra cards we have seen from this thing is just astronomical. There are some few breakpoints in terms of your ink that you do want to be kind of conscious of. And at the point where we are no longer trying to dump our hand to get Clarabelle draws, it is something to, be aware of, that you don't necessarily need to ink, every card in your hand or very aggressively ink with a bunch of sails in this position. You really just want to be establishing as many threats as possible so that the purple player doesn't have time to come back. Inking stuff like Tipo and one-cost Clarabelles and things like that are going to be ideal here, and just playing as many two-costs or two-questers as possible. But it looks like the purple player is not drawn extremely well here, and it's just, fighting with very little resources. Again, after that bend, the game is usually effectively over if you're able to draw 4 or 5 cards off a Clarabelle and then bend to my will with an empty board. Here, not questing just because of the threat of a Monstro here is something that can put them potentially back into this game. So I have tried to establish, a board in such a way that I'm not going to give them maximum value on the Monstro. The fact that Donald is a 2 power character, whereas the Clarabelles are a 5 power character, means that if a Monstro did come down there, discarding 1 card would let him, kill both of those characters and still live. So just don't want to give an extreme amount of value against these Clarabelles, and just make sure we get the maximum amount of lore out of them. Not really too concerned about a Hades here. Hades would just give us, more ink. And with 2 Clarabelles there, it's going to be hard for Hades to really contest the board too much. And just playing as many two questers as possible here, following up with the Basil. Hand still looks pretty healthy compared to the purple player, so we are not really looking to just ink an entire hand with something like Tipo and Sail. But we still want to be inking once per turn as long as we have a healthy hand size. And here it looks like we potentially have a critical breakpoint of the cards in hand where You're Welcome can actually draw us some cards. Going from 4 cards in hand up to 5 cards in hand and just removing that threat. So we're perfectly fine to do that this phase. We just want to keep the board clean and continue questing until the game is over. Here, if a Monstro does come down, it can kill all 3 of these things, but we would still have the Basil to pressure the hand and everything else next turn. So we're not super concerned about that. One thing we do want to be conscious of as we fight these resource battles with Blurple is one of the ways they do come back is if we aren't able to deal with their characters and they get to a point where they can sing Second Star to the Right, you do want to just be conscious of how many characters they have and what their costs are so that they cannot get a Second Star to the Right in some of these situations, and just fuel a massive monster turn. If things are going right, especially on the play, we often deny them ever playing Second Star to the Right because they don't be able to keep characters around. And still in a little bit of garbage time here. Realistically, I don't. It looks like he hasn't been able to find his Monstros. So we are in a spot where a lot of the cards they have are reactive, but aren't really going to be good unless there is a board position. And what he has in play is a total of 7 cost in characters. So there isn't really enough to sing second star to the right, and probably has just a handful of them. And with that in mind, quest up to 18 and then just scooped it from there. All right. And coming back to the deck list, I just wanted to go over some of the card choices again with kind of the context of what we just saw in mind. When the blue green deck, especially on the play, is able to hit its lines, there are very few decks that are able to actually combat that kind of start. Even aggro decks, if they can't disrupt the early Clarabelle shift, are usually on the back foot after you're welcome onto a key permanent where you're drawing a bunch of cards. And really, this version of the deck is trying not to mess around with stuff like Baymax shift or a lot of the uninkables that people are playing, such as Hades, just to try to maximize having all the inkables you need in play and hitting your Clarabelle lines as often as possible early and making sure you get maximum value from them. So having stuff like Mother Knows Best in your deck and the maximum copies of Develop Your Brain do give us the options that we need early on to find our 7 cost Clarabelle every single game, or at least give us our best shot of doing so. And the same thing with our 12 copies of Clarabelle from the 1 cost, 3 cost, and the 7 cost. These days, that is fairly ubiquitous, but there was a time at which people were not playing the 3 cost Clarabelles. And with this version, sometimes even if they can disrupt one of our shift lines, we can play multiple of them, before our turn 4 shift, and really just deny something like a removal spell, breaking up our combo. So you see the power of how this deck can play out. Sometimes you just draw so many cards early and disrupt their game plan, and they don't have much recourse for that, especially if you're able to find a bend in my will at a really key time. If you want more information on this deck and you want to see more gameplay of this, definitely give me a like and subscribe to my channel. We'll have 2 more games in this series of Blue Green against Blurple coming out just in time for the set champs. I am looking to play this deck in set champs for probably the upcoming month and looking to play some version of this into Milwaukee. So, link to the deck list will be down below, including the most up to date version. Good luck in your set champs, guys, and let me know if you're going to play this deck. Drop it in the comments.